Happy January 25th, JLD here, and welcome to MicroStrategy today. We're going to start by just zooming out and chilling for a second because I think we all need a little bit of that. We're going to talk about yesterday's hit piece by the Wall Street Journal. We're going to talk about some unbelievably big Bitcoin buys that are coming up in the very near-term future for MicroStrategy. Exciting times. Then I have this epic, about 4 or 5 minute Ben Workman video clip where he goes through all of MicroStrategy's probable plans for Q1. And I think he's going to be completely correct or very close to it. Remember, this video is just my thoughts and opinions. It's not financial advice. Comment below. Let us know where you're watching from. We love that data. We interact with every single comment. So thank you for that. And let's dive on in by doing what? Zooming out and just chilling for a second, because look at what's happened over the past 6 months for MicroStrategy. It has been up 120%. Now, that is a lovely gain. I know not everybody watching this has experienced all of that gain. It's just what has happened over the past 6 months. And let's compare that to what Bitcoin has done over the past 6 months. 63%, which is amazing, and about exactly half of what MicroStrategy has done. Because what is MicroStrategy? It is not a 2x levered Bitcoin play. You can buy a 2x levered ETF on Bitcoin if you so choose. What MicroStrategy is at its core, and let's go back to the actual MicroStrategy chart here. It is the biggest reserve of Bitcoin capital that any company is ever going to have. And it is run by Michael Saylor and the MicroStrategy team, who are never going to sell their Bitcoin and are going to continue to create amazing ways for that Bitcoin to be used. It's going to be used. MicroStrategy will be the refinery for that Bitcoin to create unbelievable amounts of valuable financial instruments that companies, pension funds, and nation states are going to be diving into. So it is not a 2x lever play on Bitcoin. Over time, Michael Saylor says he expects it to outperform Bitcoin by an average of 1.5 to 2x. That's what his gauge is. But sometimes it's going to way outperform Bitcoin, as you saw where it spiked way up here to 500. It got way over $500 at one point. This chart's not showing that, but I think $543 was its peak for about a day, way over the 2x Bitcoin leverage. And then, of course, it has since recorrected back down. So over a 6-month time frame, it is exactly 2x the return of what Bitcoin has produced. And that is something that we should be expecting on a long-term horizon, not short-term. So if you're a long-term investor like me, just zoom out, chill, know that MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor are working every day unbelievably hard for you and for me to create this Bitcoin treasury company of the world, this Bitcoin bank that's going to do amazing things that I am so excited to be a part of. I can't wait for the Q4 earnings call to see what they're going to do. I can't wait for all of these unbelievable, huge Bitcoin buys they have coming up with convertible bonds, preferred stock, and more ATM selling. I can't wait to see my Bitcoin yield as a shareholder continue to go up, 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 because that's what I signed up for. And that's what every long-term holder, in my opinion, should be signing up for. All right, let's move on, because Jeff Walton says there's a lot going on today. Blatant coordinated MSTR tax FUD media attack by the Wall Street Journal, Tip Ranks, and Seeking Alpha on a topic that is not new. MSTR conversion of $1 billion in convertible debt can convert over the next month, clearing up leverage on the balance sheet. So that just happened, where MSTR converted $1 billion in convertible debts. So now they are even looking better when it comes to leverage. We'll talk more about this in a second. Fred Krueger launches in rugs, a meme coin. Interesting. SOB 122, bank custody chaos and confusion. In-kind redemption on Bitcoin ETS for authorized participants. This is huge, by the way. This is a major step that not a lot of people are talking about, just because there's so much crazy news going on. This stuff is kind of going under the radar. But BlackRock came in, and they are now going to do in-kind redemption of Bitcoin for their ETF holders. They're at least moving in that direction, which is going to be amazing. XRP trying to politically undermine a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Trump saying interest rates are going to come down and the Fed will listen. SMLR pricing and upsizing to 85 million convertible debt offering at a 4.25% APR. Banking regulation slash SOB 122 rehypothecation, rating agencies, market moving at breakneck speed, Solopod, space to come. And I will be watching his Solopod in space for sure. Always interesting stuff. So that's just a glimpse at what's happening. I mean, we shouldn't have expected anything else so close to being after Trump's actual first day in office, but things are moving at breakneck speed. And it's all, in my opinion, exciting news. Even when a sensationalist story about MicroStrategy is published today on the company having to pay taxes on unrealized gains on its Bitcoin holdings, speculative nonsense. There is no way this will happen. FUD. And this is the Wall Street Journal article that has a lot of people up in arms. And guess what? The Wall Street Journal got exactly what they want. Clickbait. They got a lot of people talking about them as I am right now. I hate to do it, but I mean, it is what we have to cover. But they're getting exactly what they want. They're not posting the truth. It's not reality. It's just to get people fired up on both sides of the equation. And it's exactly what is happening. So the reality is far different. And then you just have Michael Saylor. And I just love following him on Twitter because he just posts, borrow billions, buy Bitcoin. And the biggest global convertible bond issuers in one calendar year, it's not even close. MicroStrategy has doubled its next closest competitor all the way down. So I mean, even Tesla is way down here. So MicroStrategy continues to lead the way here. Let's talk from Bitcoin overflow. It begins MSTR clearing the board of old debt, getting ready to lever up for new Bitcoin buys. As I've been saying for months, I expect them to go hard on CBs, convertible bonds, after the February 5th earnings call, which is coming right up in about 10 days or less. And this is from a tweet from Michael Saylor. MicroStrategy to redeem 1.05 billion of 2027 convertible notes and settle all conversion requests in shares MSTR in shares of MSTR. So this is something that is going to allow MicroStrategy essentially to issue even more convertible bonds and buy even more Bitcoin and increase our Bitcoin yield, which is their KPI, their key performance indicator. Matt says, MicroStrategy's leverage ratio has dropped below 13%. And remember, the target has been 20 to 25%. And this is a hat tip to Ben Workman. This is why the stock is underperforming compared to Bitcoin. And again, as I showed you in the zoom out, is actually performing amazingly over the last 6 months. 120% to 60%. Do not fear. The management team is in the process of clearing the cap structure to lever up and buy way more Bitcoin. This is 100,000 plus Bitcoin very quickly. Current projections from Matt: 6 billion in convertible bonds, 5.42 billion accretive equity issuance. This is the remainder of the 21 billion ATM, and 2 billion in preferred stock. The total of 13.42 billion. Wow, that's a lot of Bitcoin buying. Our Bitcoin yield is going to skyrocket. I think Bitcoin's going to respond favorably to that as well. Exciting times. Okay, back to Matt's post. Convertible bonds allow Saylor to buy billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin now and pay with equity half a decade from now. It's one of the most accretive capital market activities they can partake in. I'm expecting them to issue 6 billion of new converts for the maturity years of 2030, 31, and 32. This would bring each maturity closer to the 3 billion level, or they could issue for 2033. Vol is returning. That means volatility, which we love, which is the vitality of MicroStrategy. It is returning, and Matt is saying green circle higher. And then I'll just tap on this chart for a second so you can give this a look if you want to pause and read this a little more in depth. These are some projections here. And we'll move on to Ben Workman, who says, I ran some numbers on MSTR. It turns out that doing the 2 billion preferred offering and 2 additional 3 billion convertible debt offerings, 6 billion total, is not going to be enough to get to the target 25% leverage ratio. It only gets us to 22.26, assuming that Bitcoin stays at these price levels. So in fact, they will likely have to go bigger and bump those converts up to 4 billion each, or issue 2 billion converts, which gets us to a 24.9% leverage. And remember, MicroStrategy wants 25% to 30%. Side note for those still talking about over-leveraged position of MSTR even today, with the 2027 converting, the debt to equity ratio is currently 0.15. Go take a look at some other companies and see where that stacks up in the quote risky leverage unquote category. Even issuing the proposed 8 billion in converts, it only gets to 0.32. Q1 is going to be very busy with lots of Bitcoin buying. Lots of Bitcoin buying coming up, lots. And again, going from 13% leverage where they are right now to 25% is going to be a very fun ride. I'll click on this to blow it up a little bit if you want to pause and give this a little more in depth. But of course, as always, this tweet and all the others will be in the show notes below. And then I wanted to have the last post be from Jeff Park. This individual right here, he is the head of Alpha Strategies at Bitwise. And he said, has there ever been an accounting standard change in history that led to a 10 plus billion positive restatement of retained earnings? The answer is no. It's like a reverse Enron. Cleaner books, more transparent, fairer standard. That's my take on today's Wall Street Journal hit piece on MSTR. So obviously Wall Street Journal, in Jeff's opinion and in my opinion, got it completely wrong. They just don't know what they're talking about. And they're also just trying to get clicks, which is, what their business has sadly devolved into. But here's Jeff, he's Bitwise. He's not part of the MicroStrategy team. He's from Bitwise, and he is just sharing what an amazing revelation MicroStrategy is for those who actually get it. And he's one of those individuals that actually gets it. Now I have an amazing 5-minute video clip from Ben Workman, who's going to go through what we should be expecting from Q1 from MicroStrategy. It's going to be great. Take it away, Ben.
Yeah, and I think the preferred's going to come out before we see any convertibles showing up. I think that really what they're trying to do is get all the activities out of the way that lower that leverage ratio. And then I think you're going to see them lever up very quickly after that. So the preferred offering, because it's a public offering, there's a lot more administration that goes into that type of an offering. So it takes a lot longer for them than doing a convertible offering does, where it's a private placement direct with people that they already have identified. So the preferred coming, that's $2 billion that moves over to the fair market value of their Bitcoin, which just creates additional capacity there. And I think that they're very quickly, after that preferred gets out there, I think they want to do $2-3 billion convertible offerings. Probably one week, one the next week, right? I think they'll at least spread out that initial hedging period, so it's not all getting hit at once. But I think then you'll see $6 billion come out really quick, and they want to get that out in Q1. It's pretty important for them from a strategy and a timeline perspective to get as much of the fixed income out the door in Q1 as they possibly can. So a little help from Bitcoin. And I think we see, another 2-3 billion get out the door in Q1. And the reason being that for the early conversion of the convertible bonds, there's usually a 1-quarter lag before that provision becomes effective. So if they issue all these bonds in Q1, that means Q2, the early conversion, that 130% trigger, that's not going to apply, right? But it will apply in Q3. And so if you follow the Bitcoin cycles, and everyone's kind of looking at the end of Q3 as being that blow off top, right? Somewhere relative in that time frame. That means that there's a real scenario where coming into Q4, MicroStrategy could almost completely delever going into what could be a bear market. It provides them the ultimate inflexibility here if they are able to trigger those clauses and get that debt off the book. So just the fact that that's a possibility, I think, forces them to speed things up in Q1 on the fixed income side and try to get as much of it on the books as possible so that those clauses are effective going into the second half of the year. And that way, it buys them a little wiggle room where they could, wait for a couple months or 1 month, 2 months, see what seems to be happening in the market in terms of whether a bear market's going to materialize or not. And then they can capitalize on that because they would have all kinds of leverage capacity available to them to go build out a new debt ladder into the future. So that's why I'm expecting pretty heavy activity Q1, more so than I'm expecting in any other quarter this year. I think this is going to be a really big quarter for them trying to get these things on the books. I'm also expecting that you're going to see several of these bonds roll off in Q1. I think the 27s are a given. Whether MicroStrategy has to force it or not, that's going to be the question, right? Because they can force that one. They can't force the 2028s or the 2030s, but at this point, those are trading so close to equity already that I think that those will be incentive to roll off as long as they can get an allocation into the next ones that they're putting out, which I'm sure they would. So that frees up another, the 2027's a billion 50, the 2028's a billion 10, and the 2030's 800 million. So there's another, close to $3 billion in capacity right there that they would have available. So that's what I'm looking at. And that's why I'm kind of anticipating that they got all the ATM out of the way. That created a lot of leverage space. You do the preferred as long as they structure that as equity, that basically acts like the ATM, and it creates more leverage because it doesn't put any liabilities on the balance sheet. It goes straight to the equity section. So now you've got $2 billion more of unencumbered Bitcoin on the balance sheet. And then now you've got a couple months here where with any help from Bitcoin, you're going to have maximum flexibility to get several of these out, start rebuilding that debt ladder in $3 billion tranches. And then you've got time to work for you here this year. If we do get this, raging bull cycle going into the second half of the year, you've got a real chance at being able to clear all that debt really early in the cycle, which provides you flexibility depending on what the market conditions throw your way. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. And that's how I'd approach it from a strategy perspective if I was in that room. And I'm sure those guys have considered that plenty of times.
And there you have it. Another episode of MicroStrategy today. If you enjoyed this content, hit the like button and comment below where you're watching from or any other comments you want to share. I read and interact with every single one. And here is my Saturday share of my $210 dollar cost average into MicroStrategy every single day. As you can see at the bottom here, that's 124 from Friday, Thursday, Wednesday. So these are all the buys right here, the total cost that I put into them. This is the unrealized total gain from all of these. You can see some of my early ones, I'm up 15 and 14%. Some of the recent ones, not so much. And my total unrealized percentage is 1.72%. And my total gain right now is $56. And again, this is putting in $210 every single trading day of 2025. I will keep you updated on this. Of course, day one, I just did one full share. And after that, it was $210 pretty much every single day that I made happen. So please remember, this is not financial advice. And as Michael Saylor always likes to say, there is no second best.
What's the second best? There is no second best.